right, let me pull up an agenda and we'll get started here. All right. Good evening. It's Tuesday, July 9th of 2024. This is the Stoughton City Council meeting. The first order of business would be the roll call. Clerk Kristen.
Okay, Reeves.
Here.
Sherlucky.
Here.
Abel.
Here.
Lagaki.
Here.
Hirsch.
Absent and excused.
Okay, thank you. Butler.
Here.
Peyton.
Here.
Jensen.
Here.
Schumacher.
Here.
Caravello.
Here.
And is Alder Majewski present this evening?
Mike's on.
Sure I am.
Okay, thank you. So I have 11 alders, excuse me. I have 10 alders present and 2 alders absent and excused.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
We are certified in compliance with open meeting laws. And then the next item of business would be public comment. And I had 2 that submitted. One may be available to speak on item number 21. And then the other one just signed up to show support for item number 12 and did not wish to speak. And I think you have copies of those submittals, Candy. If not, I'll get them to you.
So thank you.
All right. Anybody here wish to speak at public comment? I didn't see anyone signed up, but if you want to speak, you certainly can. If not, we'll go into the meeting. We have communications and presentations. The first one is our historical fact of Stoughton.
All right. July in history was an important month for Stoughton because on July 3rd, 1847, Luke Stoughton purchased the 800 acres of land to create Stoughton Township for $2,100. So quite a bargain in there. That was while he was, even though he was from Vermont, he lived in Janesville before that. So wanted to create a town that was somewhere in between Janesville and Madison, so that it would be convenient for people traveling between the two cities. That's it.
That's it? That's all you have? All right.
It's important.
Thank you for that. Okay. And then the next item for presentation is the ARPA recap. And that would be Director Ellinger.
Tim, if you could display that, please.
I will. There we go.
Well, bottom line, we've got about 70,000 in ARPA funds that still have to be allocated, and we've got another 86,000 in investment earnings that don't have to be allocated but could be. So you got 156,000 available right now. But you're looking at about 300,000 that is being requested. So there's not enough between ARPA investment earnings. So that's the reason why you're here tonight, to kind of make some decisions going forwards. Each one of the resolutions, each one of the different ideas is on a separate resolution. So whether you want to, and I might be stealing Lisa's thunder, but whether you want to do one at a time or do a slate or however you want to choose, that is totally up to you. And there's not anything else I wanted to add. Any questions for me at all?
I don't see any questions for you. All right. And then, are there any communications from alders? President Reeves.
Just
a quick one that I heard from several of you, that you got an email that looked like it might have been from me asking for help. It's not too late, don't open it. And you might remember our IT department, has just suggested that we be really careful when we get these sorts of things, because it was probably phishing. So just go ahead and delete it. If you want to forward it to, our IT department, that's fine, but just be cautious of anything you open. So I did not send anything looking for help.
I thought that only happened to me. Must be the season. Any other communications from alders? Okay, hearing none, we'll go into our consent agenda. There's a number of items in there, and I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Majewski, is there a second?
Second.
Sherlucky. Second by Alderperson Sherlucky. Would anybody like anything acted on separately? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. All right. Next item is old business, and we have an ordinance for a second reading that came from the Plan Commission, and that would be Alderperson Caravello.
Thank you. This is ordinance 15 of 2024, approving a rezone from CB Central Business to Residential 10, MR10, at 217 South 4th Street, Stoughton, Wisconsin, parcel number 05108132155, and I so move.
And is there a second?
Second.
Second by President Reeves. Any discussion? Anything you want to review, Alderperson Caravello?
Unless there's, it was pretty straightforward, just reverting this back to this structure back to full residential.
Okay. Any questions or comments from alders? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. Yeah. We're gonna skip down to item number 21. This one here is a certified survey map that city attorney has been working on. Did you want to kind of give us an overview of where we're at on this one?
Yes, so this deals with the Ridge Street discontinuance. So there was the petition filed, I think back in February maybe, where SIBO is the current owner, but they were petitioning to discontinue that portion of Ridge Street. And in exchange, they would be dedicating additional right-of-way to the city along Cooper's Causeway. They would dedicate an outlot that would basically on the other side of Cooper's Causeway, but it is adjacent to Cooper's Causeway and goes down to the river. And then also a water main easement. So this CSM accomplishes all of those. So basically they've complied with all the conditions. They've gotten the DNR permit for the wetland fill. So this CSM is basically the final step. It makes the dedications to the city of the right-of-way, the outlot, and a water main easement, or a water line easement. And then effectively discontinues Ridge Street. So this is sort of like the last step in the process that we've been going through with the last few months.
All right. Are there any questions or comments on this one? Alderperson Caravello.
I have a question, since this has been on quite a few people's minds lately, if they have asked me, and I don't know if we know what this site is intended to be, since there's been a lot of clearing in there, and that the old IKI structure is still in there. A lot of people have been asking me what's going on, what's it going to be, what's happening. So
I do not know. I think Buck is online. I don't know if he's able to answer that.
I don't know if he's on there yet or not. I don't see him. Have you heard anything, Director Muntz Pritchard? Have anything been submitted on this?
No, nothing's been submitted so far, and, I thought I saw Chris on, which I believe is the person that potentially could be purchasing the property.
I'm on.
Yep, yeah, so Chris, do you want to talk about it? Because I know that you had talked about, essentially he owns the business to the south of this area. So, Chris, would you like to speak to this?
Sure. I can answer any questions, but there are no plans. So the only reason why when we talk to anybody that's asked, is the reason for the clearing is twofold. One, for years and years, people have been dumping there because of the overgrowth. Number two, with the path of walking being put in with this path alongside Cooper's Causeway, it's a safety thing to have the trees cleared. So if people are walking, they can see the cars. If people are driving, they can see the people walking. So other than that, it's just simple aesthetics and safety. And joining to the other parcel that we end up operating now to just further operations, that's all. But nothing really is going to change with the property other than making it look better.
And
Do you have a follow-up?
I do have a follow-up. I'm curious if you could let us know what because you are essentially what a lot of people I think refer to as the former Stoughton lumber site, which is the front or the Main Street portion of the site. What do you guys do there? If you don't mind me asking.
Yes, no problem. We sell materials, lumber still, to apartment contractors. So in the back there, if anybody was to drive back there, they'd still see wood. They'd see some wall panels back there. But that's our primary business, is construction and lumber sales.
And no plan as yet for the old IKI building? That's a pretty cool structure.
No, none at all, other than the fact of being able to use the old IKI building for storage of building materials and use the offices back there. We have, it all started actually from the use of that building and be able to have bathroom facilities closer than the front building. Other than that, that was the first interest, and now it's kind of developed into something a little bit bigger, but no plans.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Any additional questions?
I know.
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
I know part of the CSM with Cooper's Causeway, as you can see, additional right-of-way was added, and that's actually, my understanding is that's going to end up being a like some kind of pathway with the Parks Department. So you can see that, on the what would be east, kind of, because it's curved, but the east side. So.
Okay. And then I guess my question, Attorney Matthews, so once this CSM report is recorded, then the pathway that Chris just mentioned and then the outlot, is that transferred to us, or how's that all work?
Yes, so upon recording, it would be transferred. So the CSM is dedicating those to the public.
Okay. So we'd have the outlot one as well.
Correct.
Okay. And if you were to be down there, you'll see kind of the end trail that leads back behind Stoughton Health and Scotland, kind of ends in that outlot one. So I'm sure there'll be some investigation to see if we can extend that trail in that wetland and make it all connect. Is that's the hope of the Park Rec Committee? Am I speaking accurately?
Yes, like big picture where all stars to align. I think the trail that now ends at the top of Ridge Street behind Stoughton Hospital would extend along the waterfront, basically like a boardwalk fashion construction, and head down to that area and connect up with the Helen Johnson portion of the trail, and then keep going and swinging around down the riverfront. But like I said, stars aligning is going to be a lot of stars.
Heading toward Madison.
And well, heading toward to Madison, when the trail comes down along Williams Drive and connects up to Viking Park, and hopefully a spur that comes down directly into Stoughton and hooks up with our trail behind the industrial park, and then who knows where.
Exciting. Anybody else have any questions or comments on the CSM? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed?
Mayor, did anybody make a motion?
I don't think there was a
on that?
motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right, I had you, somebody has to make a motion. Who would like to do that?
Should I do that?
Sure.
Want me to do it? Okay, this is Resolution R-123 of 2024. Resolution by the Common Council of the City of Stoughton to approve a certified survey map, and I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Schumacher, all right. Yeah, the city attorney cannot make motions. All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion does carry. Then we'll go back up to item number 7. Which is authorizing and directing the proper city officials to appoint Bridget Bruns as the agent for Coffee Cup located at 355 East Main Street. Normally, this would go through the Public Safety Committee meeting, so I'll let Alder Jensen.
Yeah.
take it.
Do you want me to make a motion on
Sure,
that?
that'd be great.
So for Resolution 109, 2024, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to appoint Bridget Bruns as agent for Coffee Cup located at 355 East Main Street, and I'd move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by,
This is time sensitive. It did not go through the Public Safety Committee. There was some confusion on the change of ownership at Coffee Cup. It is a land contract, and therefore the Burns do not have title to the property, so they cannot hold the license. So in this case, the only way for it to happen is for her to be the agent. So with that confusion, to prevent them from having to wait until our next meeting, it wouldn't even be that, it'd be our first meeting in August. We just pushed it forward straight through to council for your consideration and approval, hopefully.
all right. The second was by Alder Butler Candy, in case you didn't hear that. And did you have something you wanted to add?
No, that, as it's been put out there now, Bridget has purchased, into the, Coffee Cup business. And Kendall did not want to be the agent any longer, so she's part of the LLC, and the papers were just signed yesterday, and they'll be submitting that to me. So she would like to be approved as the agent to take over that part of, the business.
All right,
And that's all I have with that one.
okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments on this one? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. All right, so that takes us to our ARPA resolutions. Now, we do have 3 groups that are here to present, and then we have an update from a 4th group. So I think we should go ahead and go through the presentations. Did you guys draw straws, or who wants to go first? I have the VFW, I have the Innovation Center Stoughton, and I have Fort Little Green. I don't really have a preference. Who wants to be first? You'll go first? Okay. Let me make sure I have, let's see. I just have to find your thing. Put it in the packet.
Well, good. Most of you know me. For those that don't, my name is Jordan Tilson. I'm the junior vice commander at the Stoughton Post. I'm also the legislative chair for the state VFW. I'm just mainly here to introduce the commander of the Stoughton VFW Post, Rob Drugsville. Our veteran community here in Stoughton is very strong. We do a lot to help the community, and these funds would definitely be a huge asset, so I'm going to let Rob take it from there. And thank you all very much.
Hello, everyone. I don't know if anybody has been out to that side of the town to see that we have started the project already. The reason we started it before we came up with all the funds, we're able to secure a loan with the bank and continue to press on with it. When we first started the project, so when we first got to our architect, up until we broke ground, the prices went up about $70,000. So hence why we pulled the trigger on starting it and doing fundraising, and now we've, rolled up our sleeves and we've really been digging in hard. The community has been amazing. We did a letter writing campaign to the via the Chamber of Commerce. We also sent out letters to our brothers and sisters in the American Legion and their auxiliaries, along with our VFWs and the VFW auxiliaries. The turnaround on that was about $20,000, which was really awesome. We had other donations from when I won the Spirit of Service Award. That was a $5,000 award that I won. I donated that back to the Post. That's been matched 5 times by individuals throughout the city. So the response from everybody has been great. Tim approached me about this ARPA money, so we'd like to take advantage of it.
So our main thing is we're trying to update the hall. The hall, of course, for those of you that have been there, it needs major renovations. This is a community point. The community uses it for events, lots of weddings, etc. that goes in there, and we haven't had 88 bathrooms. And that's been something that our post has been talking about for over 10 years and just haven't quite pushed it through. But Rob executed it, making sure it got done, working with the builders, making sure we have that for our aging veteran population and many veterans for the years and the community as a whole. So that is where this money is going towards, and we thank you all very much for your consideration for that.
All right. Thank you for being here tonight. Are there any questions for these gentlemen? All right. Thanks for being here. All right. And who wants to be next? Fort Little Green? Sure. Let me see which one is there. Oh, I think I do. Get that guy out of the way. Okay. You want to go through the slides?
Sure, I'll just do a quick
Yep.
introduction and let you know who we are, and then I'll let Molly take over for the slideshow. So my name is Kate Dennis, and my husband and I founded Fort Little Green. We actually started in 2009 here in Stoughton, real small, and then we founded it as a nonprofit in 2013. What we noticed in Stoughton was that there wasn't a lot of programming for grade school kids in the area that was solely dedicated to grade school kids, and certainly nothing that was outdoor based. At the time, as my 3 kids were growing, we knew the only real programming for them in town for like day services was operating out of the school building. And I thought to myself, these poor kids have to go back to school in the summer, right? Like, as much as I admire our public schools, there is definitely something to be said about getting a break from those 4 walls and getting a break from the institutional setting. So we concepted the idea of Fort Little Green, which we had access to 10 acres of beautiful property right here on the east side of Stoughton, right off a racetrack road. And we founded the camp to be a place where kids could come and have an amazing experience being outdoors as much as possible. as we grew, the center grew really quickly, really rapidly. It became really popular. It was an alternative to some of the other styles of programming available. We have about 4 acres of woods, and one of the most fun things to do for these kids is to just go and play in the woods. That's how I grew up. I longed for the freedom of summer. I longed to be outdoors and to have that freedom. So that's kind of what we wanted to give back to the kids of today, was the freedom of summer, being outdoors, away from screens. Technology definitely has its place, but a break from that is something you need as well. Research shows that unstructured play in the woods builds imagination. It's the core of creativity. It develops problem-solving skills in kids, and it gives you the sense of being in nature. Just gives you the sense of being part of something bigger than yourself. So we established this camp with general camp activities in mind, sports and art and music and all of those things you can expose your kids to for a well-rounded experience growing up. But the underlying theme is to reconnect kids to nature and sustainability. You know, you can grow your own food, you can raise your own animals. So part of our property is dedicated to just that. We have about a 1-acre garden that much of the produce is donated to right back to the families, also to the food pantries here in Stoughton and up in Madison as well. So raising animals, you can do that. It develops empathy in kids, and it's very, very therapeutic. So one of our main goals with Fort Little Green is to keep it affordable for low-income families and working families. Part of the reason we started this is I had 3 little kids and couldn't afford daycare to go to work. So and one of our children is special needs, and so it was really important for us to create a place that's inclusive and affordable, keeping our rates as low as we possibly can, and you know, seeking out funds elsewhere to grow the program instead of gouging our parents' pockets. So in doing that, what part of our big expansion coming up that Molly's going to talk a little bit more about is making it inclusive and accessible for disabled people. Getting people that are, you know, less able to walk and just aren't used to uneven paths and things like that, whether it be in a wheelchair or even, you know, people coming to tour the property, getting them down into the woods is an important feature. So I'm going to let Molly take over and explain more.
Thanks. You want to go to the next slide? So this, oh, great. So Kate's already kind of covered most of this, but just a few of our accolades: that we are an accredited camp, and we actually are up for reaccreditation tomorrow, and that we've been voted in a nationally recognized award. So in case you didn't know, we have this wonderful gem over right here in Stoughton, which we're really proud of. Next slide, please. So a little bit about our expansion plan. As Kate shared, you know, the program is growing much faster than we have space for. And so Kate and her board of directors have created this expansion plan, and what's highlighted here is phase 1 of the expansion plan. We're working with Danton Construction. They are the general contractor that are managing all of our plans, and we've been working with them, and they've been wonderful to work with. And these are some of the highlights, which is this educational walkway, which we've already secured funding for and have begun work on that. If you want to go to the next slide. So this is kind of our big ask for today, is that we're requesting funds for the highlighted section that will go into the woods. So this is going to be a boardwalk that goes into the woods. The previous walkway that we've secured funding for from the Wyden Foundation, which is a foundation based in Cottage Grove, is for a different material, which is going to be a crushed gravel walkway as opposed to a boardwalk. So there's a much bigger difference in cost. So when we initially wrote our letter, we found out about this about the week that the letter was due. We did some rough numbers. We went to and submitted the letter so that we could at least come and present to you today. We went to our general contractor and shared with them again that we were coming to request these funds, and said, can you help us with some more rough numbers, which is what I presented to you here on the slide, which is a much bigger cost than what we'd initially put on our letter. So with all of that in mind, Any amount that you're able to give us will be able to keep us moving forward on this project. We would love to be able to get the full cost of this highlighted section, which is closer to 60,000, just in materials and engineering. There'll be additional costs above and beyond that we can account for with other funding sources that we've already created relationships with, again, with the Wyden Foundation. The Rotary Club of Stoughton have also expressed interest in supporting our initiatives here at Fort Little Green. So we thank you so much for letting us come and present to you today and share a little bit about Fort Little Green. And again, we appreciate just the opportunity to come and share about our camp.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions?
I did have a question. I was just wanting to clarify. So I think your request was for 17,500. So are you saying costs went over that, or that's the amount that you're coming up short? Can you just help us understand what the cost is and what you're short? And
Absolutely. Yeah, so the 17.5 was a rough estimate that we came up with in a brainstorming session trying to create this letter, and we had to submit it, and so that was just a rough estimate based off of materials and knowledge that we already had from the previous pathway. Then when we went, after we submitted the letter, we went to our contractor and didn't account for all of the costs of the materials and the engineering, since we're going into the woods and we have all of the ADA accommodations to account for, as well as tree removal, landscape, erosion control, all of those things, which brought the cost up. So we are amending our ask to the 60,000.
and you do have funds coming from the Wyden Foundation, but that's for some other.
So the Wyden Foundation funds, we've already secured those and are using those for a different pathway. That's a separate part of this phase. This is a different boardwalk. But the Wyden Foundation was very open that they were excited about our camp and our project, and so we plan to solicit them again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, and then the next one is Innovation Center Stoughton. Okay. Anything particular you want to picture?
Sure. Yeah, so hi everyone, thank you. I'm Katrina Becker, Executive Director of Innovation Center Stoughton. I also have Sarah Ebert, President of the Stoughton Chamber of Commerce and a board member of ICS here with me. She helped put together this request as well. So we're really excited. We just signed a 2-year lease for our first official space at 421 East Main Street. That's a picture of the building. It used to be Elsing's Secondhand Shop, Marcella's Pizza. And for this space, we're planning to have a maker space with high-tech equipment. We'll offer STEAM, so science, technology, engineering, art, and math, programming, and workshops, micro-credentialing and training, and then entrepreneurial programming and workshops as well. We'll also have memberships that people can purchase and utilize the space. So the location is really ideal for us. It's located right downtown. It's nearby Grand Inspired, a woodworking makerspace and gallery, and then the youth center as well, both of which we want to partner with for our programming. The biggest drawback to the space is that it is not ADA accessible. It's a historic building. The building owner is really putting in a lot of work, doing awesome renovations and making it really, really great. The upstairs has been turned into really nice apartments. We'll be renting the first floor, but there's really there are only stairs into the building. And the slope and the grade of the sidewalk there is really so steep that a permanent ramp likely isn't possible. We've done some research and consulted some industry professionals, and really the best option for now that we found is a portable wheelchair lift. And so that's what we would like to do, is to purchase that wheelchair lift. We would still like to work with the building owner and the city potentially to explore any other more permanent options, maybe timed with the road construction for next summer. But our lease will be starting October 1st. So we really want to make this an accessible space from the beginning. So the cost of the lift is $15,000. I've included some photos of it and kind of the proposal for it and more details. It's manual, so it doesn't need to be plugged in. It's portable and it has wheels, so it can be pushed. It says it's as easy to push as a shopping cart when it's on a level surface, or it can be transported in any regular pickup truck. It's about 265 pounds. And we would also really like to make this a resource that's available to other organizations and businesses in the community that they can use for their own events and their own spaces when not being used by us. So we really want to make it community resource, since a lot of the old historic buildings, especially in the downtown area, aren't yet ADA accessible. So, you know, we have a detailed business plan and budget and are really grateful for the council's original ARPA grant to us. This was kind of an unforeseen additional startup expense that we need to find additional funding for. So, yeah, happy to answer any other questions. I'd also add that the service life of the lift is 20 years, so it'll hopefully last a long time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Katrina? Alder Payton?
Hi, Katrina. Thank you for presenting on this. A question that I have is if the Landmarks Commission, because of the historical nature of the building, has been approached about funding or grant for any type of updating that's needed so far, and if this is eligible for some of those fundings.
We have not approached the Landmarks Commission. I know they just dispersed, I think they had around $20,000 available to give out as grants to buildings downtown. I think those were just dispersed in April. So potentially next year. I'm not exactly sure when their application process is. I think it maybe could be a potential grant for them. I think from what I know is that they usually get quite a few different smaller requests, and from what I've seen, they tend to, I think, like to fulfill the kind of as many smaller requests as they can rather than one larger request. But yeah, it could definitely.
You mean the Landmarks Commission? The Landmarks Commission likes to give smaller. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think also they know other opportunities outside of what their own funds are and how to apply for historical grants for restorations and other things. We had this whole conversation, I think, about their committee back when they requested new zoning. So if it's in their historical overlay district, I think there's opportunities there for the building owner to move forward with requesting other grant opportunities, because if the building is being restored for use in this way, then as much as can be helpful there is appropriate. But you're not the building owner, you're just going to rent. But that's just kind of my comment on the situation.
Yeah, thank you.
President Reeves.
Those of you that have been on the Landmarks Commission can correct me. I only served for a short time, but I think two things. In order to qualify for a lot of those state historical grants, you have to apply before you start the work. But I think it's for the building. I don't think it's for ancillary equipment. And I think you're correct about the smaller funds generally being because they want to include more people, more requests. So I think if they only have like 20,000, I think they tend to probably give out a handful of smaller ones. I don't know that there's a rule about that, but just my limited experience, I think you're correct about that, just to make it go a little further.
Any additional questions? Okay, thank you for being here.
Is Dave, may I ask, is Director, Finance Director Dave, are you able to give a sense? A few years ago, it was only $10,000 in total grants, and I was not aware that went up to 20.
For the
grants?
landmarks, yeah,
Yep.
it was 10, and then we raised it, I think, up to 15, and then
Nice.
we reallocated a few $1,000s to get it up to, I want to say 18, and then there was some money from 2023 that carried over that took us to
Okay.
20. So I think the budget for next year is going to be, if we maintain the status quo, somewhere around 18, give or take a couple.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Okay, and we did receive an update from Sustainability Committee. Did you want to speak to that, Adrian? I can put that up. We had paper copies available for those that are in the room and for those that are on Zoom. Give me a moment and I'll bring up the electronic version of it. I just need to find it. It was on the email, wasn't it?
I can start speaking to it if that
Sure,
would
go ahead.
save some time. Yeah, at our last Sustainability Committee meeting, following the Committee of the Whole meeting where we presented on our recommendations for the $250,000 earmarked for sustainability, we decided that with the remaining funds, that we would like to right-size our recommendations to fit within that amount. So we amended the dollar amount, and I failed to get my email out of my inbox. I'm not sure what happened. I apologize about that. But so you'll notice that Green Spire landscaping, permaculture landscaping in the packet is for $75,000. That would be the most comprehensive and impactful spending for that project. However, we think that with about $48,000, a lot could still be accomplished, specifically regarding the stormwater management. Just as a reminder, that was presented at Committee of the Whole, a 1-inch rainfall produces 33,000 gallons of runoff on the Green Spire property. So stormwater management is a really big deal over there. And there's also some sinking utilities and erosion that could be remedied with these measures. Additionally, there were some concerns about what the maintenance and management might look like for that. So I did include a little summary of what the permaculture experts say you would need for your typical rain garden or food forest. And I do want to note that a food forest is not like an orchard or a group of, necessarily fruit producing trees or anything like that. These can range from perennial edibles, which might include some like berry trees, currant bushes, or things like that, all the way to pollinator habitat. And that could be an opportunity to engage with the Green Spire community to, get their pulse on what they might like to see in those stormwater management landscaping solutions. So just something to consider there. Additionally, our original ask for the food composting request. Currently in the packet, we are requesting $18,000 and $20,000 for 2-year programs. We could bring those down to $12,000 and $10,000 for 1-year programs to start getting some food composting going in the city of Stoughton. We can't get Greenbox to come and do a subscription service for food composting without enough people signed up. So this is a really great way to jumpstart some food composting in the city to make some good sustainability impact. Lastly, I do want to point out the food forest program that we've recommended. There are already conversations with the schools. The school district is interested. Greenspire could be one location, which is one way we were able to bring that 75,000 down to 48, would be instead of using the permaculture experts for that, we could use one of these food forests from this nonprofit organization. And I would say that there's some flexibility here. I think we would recommend a minimum of $6,000, which would be 2 implementation projects versus $18,000, which would be 6 food forests. So just something to think about. There is some flexibility in the amount if people were open to amending to get some of these measures through the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Adrienne? I guess I had a couple.
Yeah.
If these were funded now, which ones, any or all of them, would you be able to start on this year, or would you be looking at possibly next year for some of them?
The food composting programs could be started right away. The food forest through Wisconsin Food Forests, the implementation could happen starting in 2025. And I believe with the Greenspire permaculture landscaping, I do have my materials to reference if you want an exact, but I believe they could do some work starting this fall and then into spring next year, or they would get that going into spring next year. And by the end of 2025, everything would be up and running.
Thank you. Yep. Anybody else have any questions? Alderperson Abel?
Just curious, I know you guys tried out event composting at Taste of Stoughton, and like, what was the success?
Yeah, so it was a really positive experience. I was there for 2 hours, and another sustainability committee volunteered and had a similar experience. People were very open to sorting their waste, and I wasn't sure how that would go, thinking that people would kind of be grumpy about it. But people were so great. They were interested in doing it, and they thanked us. They were like, "Thank you for doing this. This is great." So people were receptive from our point of view, and I think people are feeling good about it.
Any other questions? Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the packet we have resolutions for all of these. Some of the numbers, as we just learned, have changed, the sustainability ones, and then the requests from Fort Little Green. And then Dave, you said that we have to allocate some of the money this year, but the interest could be whenever.
Correct.
And I don't remember what those numbers were.
Going from memory, it's about 70,000 for remaining ARPA funds that have to be allocated by December 31st. But a reminder, we're going into budget season, so a lot of other things going on. And then the remainder can occur at any time.
Okay, and then on these requests, they really need to be for specific projects, right? I mean, they have to be something that we know is going to happen. We can't say it's January and we say, oh, we were going to spend it on this, but now we want to do this instead.
Well, it depends on how strict your resolution or motion is. If you say specifically, we want a food forest at 123 East Main Street, and you don't do it, you're kind of in a lurch. But if you say, we want the monies for a food forest, and we're allocating whatever, 6,000, 18,000 for it, you know, that leaves it open. If you wanted to allocate 6,000 for sustainability items and leave it wide open, that gives it a lot more latitude.
All right, thank you for that. Does anybody have any questions for Dave before we go into this? Otherwise, we can handle this in a few different ways. We can go through the list, or if anybody else has any ideas on what they would like to do, I'm open to whatever you folks. President Reeves.
Well, it's partly a question for Attorney Manthe. So I have several that I feel like I have enough information on that I could offer a slate for approval. Is that okay? And, you know, do I just read each one? Can you help me with that? Or should I just go one by one and make a motion?
I think you could do it either way. I mean, you make the motion and you need the second for the slate of options, right? But I think you could do a motion to include several of these just for, I guess, efficiency's sake. But if you wanted to go one by one, that's perfectly fine as well, obviously.
Well, if that's the case, is it all right for me to make a motion? Or?
Sure.
All right. So I'm going to make a motion to approve several that I feel like I have enough information on. So that would be Resolution 116, 2024, which would be to amend the 2024 adopted budget for ARPA funds for the Veterans of Foreign Wars, American with Disabilities Act compliant restrooms for $51,286. Also, Resolution 117, 2024, amend the 2024 adopted budget ARPA funds for the Innovation Center, Stoughton, for $15,000. And this is where I may need some assistance. So I was going to amend the 2024 adopted budget for the ARPA funds for Fort Little Green, but instead of $17,500, I was going to make the motion for $20,000, which I believe would be a total of $86,000, $286. So I don't know if that's outside of the rules because it is different. That amount is different. So I can take that one out if you recommend that.
It might be easier to handle that one separately.
Okay.
So I will just make a motion to approve 116 and 117, 2020 earlier. So I so move.
Is there a second? Second by Alder Jensen. President Reeves, do you want to explain your?
Well, I think they really, for me, check a lot of boxes. You know, it's tough to really identify, I think, you know, how we can make an impactful contribution when it comes to some folks with mobility issues. So I think both the VFW and the Innovation Center really, you know, it's a lot about accessibility and inclusivity, and it would include a lot of people. So that's kind of how I came to the conclusion.
Alderperson Jensen.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I definitely agree with Resolution 116 for the VFW. It's a community. It is the VFW, but it is very much a community building. Used for, like they stated, it's used for many things. And as far as making the restrooms ADA accessible, that is long overdue. So I'm very much in favor of that, and then also with the 117, which is the Innovation
Center.
Right. Yeah. So that's also, I think, very appropriate. So.
Well, and I might just add that I think the fact that it can be used by other community members is appealing. So, I mean, we're an old city, and it's tough to get into some of those buildings. So I think this would be I mean, it's relatively inexpensive.
Any other questions or comments? I guess I would add on the lift. I think that my experience has been with the landmarks is on some of the buildings, there's certain things that we would not be able to do in order to make them ADA accessible because it's conflicting with the landmark, the historical preservation. Now, I'm not the expert, but I've been in several meetings lately, and we've had those types of conversations. So we are taking a deeper dive on that. What I like about President Reeves's motion is it does check a lot of boxes, and I also think it's in the spirit of what the ARPA money was intended for, and we're using it under the lost revenue category. And I know for sure the VFW and other businesses and nonprofits were impacted greatly by the pandemic. So I think, that checks that box as well. So I think it's a good motion, and I do want to add that any of the other requests that we put forward tonight would also be considered during our budget meetings and at other times, if not, this year in future years. So if we're not able to fund them all. There's just not enough money available to do that. But certainly I think that the council will have other opportunities to fund some of the other initiatives, especially those that we do possibly need more information on. So I don't want people walking away feeling like, oh, they didn't get their request honored, or something that was near and dear to any one of us didn't get funded now. I think there are other opportunities to take a second or third look at those items as well. So I wanted to at least put that out there. Anybody else have any questions or comments on the motion?
I do.
Alderperson Luckaki.
I think that they are worthy projects and they tick very many boxes around inclusivity, around accessibility, trying to make our buildings even more sustainable and tolerable and livable. All of that is awesome. I do have just that procedural request of the city putting forth sustainability and idea projects and asking for a nice citywide initiative, and it has gone in those directions, and yet we are awarding monies that are related, but these are particular projects, and it feels a little defeating. I know there's more money out there, but we've had some earmarks that things have just simply changed. And before we award money, I just ask that, with our DEI coordinator, Ava, coming at 8:05 with her presentation, before we start awarding monies, I hope that we consider all of the information and not ask people for their votes and their decisions till everyone's had a chance to speak.
Okay, any questions or comments from any other alders? So I guess we do have the motion on the table that we should act on, and then we can kind of go from there. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 And any opposed? None opposed. That motion carries.
I'm abstaining on a point of order.
Okay.
I actually think I'm going to join Jean in that. Well, discussion is over, but I like Jean's point.
Does that mean you're abstaining?
I
or
am
you just-
abstaining.
Okay. So, Candy, there would be 2 abstentions then.
Did that account for all of the voice call that I heard, Mayor? Did you feel you captured it?
Yeah, I think I didn't hear any no's, and I heard 2 abstentions. That what everybody heard? Okay.
Good, thank you.
Okay, so Dave, did you tally that up for us, or maybe Lisa did already?
I was going to ask that too, because I have a tally, but
I think it's $90,670 remaining.
Yes, so
Well, depends on what you're talking about now. You've got
Only
4,000.
those 2.
you've got 4,240 in ARPA funds, which is less than any of the requests. So any future requests over that dollar amount will have to be a little bit more specific as to whether you are going to use investment earnings in the ARPA fund, or if you're going to take monies from the general fund, or however you want to fund those activities.
Can you say that number one more time?
That we have available, $4,240 in ARPA.
And then the interest earned, if my math is correct, is like 86.
430.98. That's through May 31st. We just posted the entries today for investment earnings, so it's a few thousand more.
Okay. And then you mentioned there's a potential that we could fund other initiatives out of the general fund.
The council can do whatever they wish, yes.
Right. I don't know if we can do that tonight, though, because I don't know if we're adequately noticed to do that tonight. But I think that's something we could do at a future meeting, but I'm looking for clarification. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
I would agree. I think we should focus on ARPA funds tonight, or like ARPA or the interest income from the ARPA funds, rather than general fund budget amendments.
Okay. So, did everybody catch all that? Mm-hmm. Okay. So as stated, the remaining ARPA, we have 4,240, and then we have another potential 86,430 plus change of the interest that had been earned on that ARPA money available. So, and then Alder Lagaki, you mentioned that ABBA might be joining us yet. I imagine we could maybe go to something else and come back. Does that sound okay with everybody? We still have yeah, we have a couple other items that we can do for business and then come back. How's that sound? Yeah, let me just find them here.
Resolution 121 and 120.
Okay. So we'll do that, and then we'll come back because we certainly want to give an opportunity there. So we're going to item 19, is that what you said?
19, yeah.
Okay, we're going to go to Resolution 121 of 2024, and this one came from the Finance Committee meeting, and that would be Alderperson Schumacher.
All right, this is Resolution 121, 2024, resolution for the Memorandum of Understanding for the ARPA Revolving Loan Program. So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by President Reeves. Alderperson Schumacher.
Well, I'm trying to find the notes about that. I think this is just refreshing an agreement we had.
The MOU.
What's that? Yeah, it was an old agreement, and this is just updating that with current terms.
Okay. Anything you want to highlight, Director Ellinger?
It's technically updating an old agreement for the RDA, but the city did not have a memorandum of understanding with WIBIC for the revolving loan program. So we need to get one for the ARPA fund revolving loan program. But as stated, it's just basically we're going to have them continue working on the program for us, basically doing the same thing we've been doing past practice for the last decade.
Yeah, it seems like we got a little more specific on a couple things as far as the interest. I think we updated maybe the interest rate. Or is that more...
Katrina, correct me if I'm wrong, the rate's going from 3% to 5%?
Yep, and then I think that, Katrina, you're also going to help facilitate some of these loans, right? You can come up and speak if you want.
Yeah, I think the RDA added in that I would be kind of a liaison between applicants or potential applicants to help them through the WIBIC loan process. It's kind of there are a lot of documents required and financial projections, and some applicants were having trouble kind of working through all that. So I think that was added into it, as well as adding in a kind of a timeline for the application process, because I brought that up as another potential or a kind of an issue with some of the loan applicants was the length of time going through the loan process. So we added in, I think, 90 days from loan application to closing. So
yeah, I think what we found when we met with WIBIC, and we had a pretty nice discussion, is that we had several business owners that began the process to apply for the loan and never finished it. And we felt that maybe with a little help, we could help get them to the finish line. And then the Becker Professional Services offered to help us with that. And by raising the interest, we can cover the cost of WIBIC to do their underwriting and their administrative work, and pay for Becker Professional Services to help, basically, I'm going to call them our clients, as they go through that process. I captured that accurately. So those are kind of the main things, but we really wanted to get everything structured and in writing. And this one, as you mentioned, is for the RDA. So Dave, you're anticipating drafting a similar one for the council for the ARPA funds. Is that what I heard, or is this the one?
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
Is this one here for the RDA or for the city?
Well, it's the same contract for both.
Okay.
And what the RDA approved was incorporated in the language of this one.
Okay, so it's the same MOU for both on
Correct.
one resolution.
Correct.
Got it. All right. Any questions or comments on this? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. And any opposed? That motion carries. Next item is number 20, and this is an example of a budget amendment. So as we mentioned on some of the other ARPA requests, we could go through this process in order to fund them, but we'll let this one get introduced. This one also came through the Finance Committee, Alderperson Schumacher.
This is R-123 of 2024, a resolution to amend the 2024 adopted budget for racetrack, park, trail maintenance. So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by President Reeves. Alderperson Schumacher.
Some repairs need to be done out at Racetrack Park, and there was a surplus realized in the Virgin Lake Trail project, so monies of that project are being moved over to the racetrack.
Yeah, on the agenda it says 122, but on the resolution it says 123. We'll have the clerk check that.
Yep. So
Should be 122.
restate R-122 at
Got it. Yeah, in the resolution it says 123. It should be 122. Is that what you're saying, Tom?
Yep.
Thank you for catching that.
Yep.
Okay, anything else? All right. All in favor of the motion say aye.
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 And any opposed? That motion carries. So we have one closed session item, and then we can continue the ARPA discussion. It looks like Abba has joined us, so we can give Abba a quick update. So we've already allocated some money, Abba, and we still have some money remaining out of the original ARPA money. We have $4,240 available, and then we have some interest that we've earned on that money, north of $86,000. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there's other ways we can fund some of these initiatives, like we just did with the budget amendment, or we could potentially put money into the budget for 2025. And before I continue, Buck, we already approved your item. So you can log out if you'd like and contact Attorney Matthew for the details in the morning. Did you, okay, we're good there. So that's where we're at, Abba. And I know that you wanted to provide some additional information to the City Council about your proposal.
Would it be possible for me to share my screen?
Go right ahead.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, it's really nice to be here with you all. I know that I had a chance to speak to you, I think about 1.5 years ago now. So I'm glad to actually be able to give you an update and let you know about the progress we've made and sort of the plans that the committee and I have created together for the next step. So I just put together a brief slide deck just to kind of help guide us through that. So just to sort of give you a timeline of the work that we've done to date, I was first approached in December 2022 and met with your original version of the DEI committee and submitted a proposal at their request. The proposal was accepted during the first quarter of 2023. And at that point, I had requested some version of a group that I could work with to act as connectors and a source of insight into the community. Part of it is because I'm not a resident of Stoughton, but even if I had been, I think it was really important that I was able to work with a consistent group that I could build relationships with and really develop a shared vocabulary for this work. So we kicked off at the Stoughton Senior Center in May. I joined Mayor Swadley there, and we had also some outreach materials to invite additional community members into the work. We convened 3 committee meetings from June to September last year. And during that time, and I'll share a little bit more about what we did, but the goal there was to build relationships and then to provide training on idea concepts and develop a shared vocabulary and vision for the plan. For the next 3 months in the fall, we actually struggled to achieve quorum. So it didn't necessarily cost you extra money, but it did slow the process down as we tried to regroup and figure out how to sort of keep moving things forward. I really want to emphasize that your committee members, it was not a lack of commitment or interest, but I think it was really just a lot of bad coincidences and timing with meeting schedules. But in fact, they stayed quite engaged by email and communicated with me pretty regularly whenever I needed direct input. So then in January, we actually came up with the idea of holding a retreat to just really move things forward as quickly as possible. And so we did that on a very snowy Saturday morning. I don't know if you remember it this year, but the whole county was shut down. And so we went virtual, but it was a really productive retreat, actually, where we went into great detail on our community engagement plan. So we sort of looked at all the different demographic groups that the committee felt like we needed to connect with and what we wanted to know from them. And so what I was doing at that point is kind of based on the framework we had built, is really helping the committee members who know your community better think through what the different nuances are around inclusiveness, diversity, equity, and accessibility, specifically in Stoughton, and who it is we want to make sure to hear from in that process. And so we made some great progress that day, and then unfortunately I became pretty ill, and so I was out for a couple months, which again did not cost you anything, but it was a delay, and as you can imagine, it was a frustrating time for me to not be able to move forward on all of my work. But as I started to emerge, what we decided to do is start with a survey. And and I'll talk a little bit more about why that was the approach that seemed to make the most sense. But we did draft the survey in June, and we began to test it, which is just good practice in terms of making sure it's a clear tool and accessible. And I was able to be at the Juneteenth celebration just a few weeks ago, and it was really a tremendous amount of fun. And had about 50 people, more than 50 people, actually complete the survey and give really terrific feedback that made it even better. And so we are in the process right now of finalizing the survey and are planning a soft launch in English via online channels in July. And then we'll have the hard copy versions, and we'll send volunteers out to various, for example, at the food pantry or at, I believe it was Bay Creek. Is that right, or is it Bayview? I think it's Bay Creek. Yes. Oh, Bayview. Okay. Anyway, so I'm working with the committee members on sort of determining where we might want to have hard copies available. And in the meantime, I'm having it translated into Spanish and Albanian and implementing that as well. And we've also talked about Ukrainian as a possibility for languages, and I can share more about the considerations around that. So the goal then is to do survey data analysis and a summary in September, and then begin presenting initial survey results, starting with you all and the city staff and mayor, just to get some initial feedback before we take it out to the community around focus groups to deepen our understanding, specifically to reach, historically underrepresented groups and folks that we may not have reached as much as we wanted to in the survey. So the goal there is to have 4 community engagement sessions that are pretty well resourced with gift cards and meals and childcare, and then to also do 6 meetings either in small group, well, mostly in small groups with other key leaders, such as nonprofit leaders and service providers like your JFF social worker. And then to have a draft plan presented to the community in November with the final plan submitted in December. So that's kind of the trajectory. Any questions on that before I move into? Most of this now is kind of just a summary of like where we're going and what it will cost. And so I just wanted to share the pause before I go there.
Any questions from anybody in the room? I cannot see anybody online right now. Can you, Abba?
I can't see anyone raising their hand.
Well,
So
if anybody online has a question, just go ahead and ask it. We have one in the room from Alderperson Sherlucky.
So I just wanted to double check your timeline on this. So there are no firm projects as of yet, but you're planning on getting a plan for future projects and endeavors by December. Am I hearing you correctly?
yes, that's right. So based on community input, we will design, and I'll talk a little bit about how we will develop those recommendations. But yeah, you're right.
Any other questions? Hearing none, go ahead.
All right. So what we have been working on with the committee is really developing the lenses through which we will that we designed our community engagement process, and then also will develop plan recommendations. But ultimately, the goal, right, is to build cultures that are healing and just, resilient, inclusive and safe, and democratic and transparent. And so when we think about those different attributes, we think about how that works at various levels of impact. So we think about how these ideas of the impact that diversity, equity, and inclusion has on individuals and our individual skills in that work, how it shows up in our relationships, how it shows up in organizations and institutions in the community, and then how it shows up in our culture and systems. And so we have sort of gone into depth on these different concepts around those levels of impact I just shared, the definitions of what we mean by idea, what intersectionality, power, social determinants of health, trauma-informed care and restorative justice and transformative culture. And so what we wanted to do was to really develop, I wanted to have the group really develop an understanding of that so we could think about how this shows up in Stoughton and what questions we need to ask in order to get at, because what these lenses are is they help us understand the impact of how we're doing when it comes to inclusivity, diversity, equity, and accessibility, and how that shows up in our population. So we decided on a survey in part because you'll see that the group had a number of demographic groups: rural residents, women, people with disabilities, people experiencing homelessness, business owners of color, people living in low-income housing, seniors, people who utilize the food pantry, the queer community, BIPOC folks, students and parents of color. There were actually a total of 14 demographic groups, and quite honestly, it felt important to hear from them, and doing that in a focus group format is actually not as cost effective as doing a survey where we can really get a broad sweep and really understand people's lived experiences based on who they are. And then we were able in the survey design to really integrate all these different lenses that I referred to. So you'll see in our survey that we do try to assess people's experiences around each of these things, whether that's their ability to be involved in decision making in Stoughton, how the social determinants of health, basically how they get their basic needs met in the community, their experiences of trauma. So the survey actually allows us to hit on a variety of different areas of experience that people may have. And then what we can do is, after analyzing the survey data, use those community engagement sessions to really target the audiences that we need to hear more from, and use those because those are very time intensive, and so using those in the most efficient way possible after we have kind of a baseline of survey data to go deeper into. And then one of the things that made me really optimistic is, one, the response we got to the survey when we tested it. And I will be totally honest with you, I probably got hugged at least a dozen times by complete strangers who were so thrilled that we were doing this work and loved the survey for the way it captured people's experiences. So I was also able to get an additional 15, 20 people who are willing to help us spread the word about the survey, people of color who can connect us to different communities throughout Stoughton. So I actually feel pretty optimistic that our outreach strategy is going to be effective and that people are motivated to be a part of it. And so that was really exciting to see. A year and a half ago, the budget that we had allocated was $18,300. I think at that time I had hoped that we could do it for this cost, and I honestly didn't know what the full scope of this project would be. So there were some variables. I didn't know whether the community wanted to focus specifically on city government as an organization, or on the entire community culture and lived experience. And those are two very different scopes in terms of, who we need to work like query and where we need to get feedback from and develop recommendations for. I think the committee also really showed an interest in doing really deep community engagement. And while a survey can be time intensive, if done well, it can yield really significant data and then help us plan our focus groups better. And it's a big endeavor to develop a community-wide survey. And then I think if you remember if you look back at the original proposal, I had also sort of, not known how much time we'd be able to leverage from volunteers and in-kind time from, for example, city staff or other nonprofits or organizations. And I think what has happened is that, and some of you have witnessed this directly, is that there's been a really strong desire for my direct engagement which I understand this work is highly relational and trust-based. And so I've tried really hard to strike a balance between how much time I'm investing in relationship building, since those relationships won't come with, right? I will leave. And so my goal is to help build relationships among your community to get the work done. And yet there's sort of this fundamental need for my presence to be a connector in some of that and to help establish, you know, what the vision is here. So the summary of funds spent to date, kind of the major tasks, we've spent about $15,000. I put some time into helping the mayor develop the committee and recruitment. Most of the time has been spent on the idea meetings, the trainings, the preparation and communication, and then spent a little bit of time in planning meetings with leadership. Honestly, I haven't billed for all of that because some of it is just sort of par for the course. And then relationship building with Stoughton leaders, which again, I've just some key folks who, for example, the superintendent of your schools, Stoughton health folks that I just really needed to connect with and get some buy-in from, and then survey development. So that's been where the funds have gone. In terms of what is still needing to be done, we have about 3,000 remaining. We need to finalize the English survey and distribute that. We need to translate the survey. You'll see that each language costs about $1,750 from a translation and administration standpoint. My survey tool is powerful for multilingual surveys. So I think we'll have a fantastic data set that's well integrated, but it is costly upfront to get the translation done. And then survey promotion and outreach. And then there's this potential of having some survey data entry time, which I'm hoping to leverage volunteer time for. And I might have idea committee members who are willing to help with that. But just in case, that is, I haven't included it in the estimate, but that is possibly an additional $2,000. And then analysis and reporting of the survey data, and then our focus group. So a report out to the city, and then meetings with key community leaders and community engagement sessions, and then your final plan development. Basically, this is my, I think my offer, right, is that based on what's left, the estimate of needed funds is about $22,000. And so, but what I'm willing to do, I'm willing to give you like $20,000 will complete the project by the end of the year, or 17,700. So I'll just be candid. I am still dealing with some health things, and if I can slow the pace down a bit and have it done by June of next year instead, I will give you a few $1,000s off. So basically offering a discount for time. But I will, and this will be the cap. I will finish the project for whichever of these amounts you choose. And regardless of what it costs, the only sort of caveat might have to be around if it feels important to translate to Ukrainian. And then also I'm still working on data entry, but maybe some of you are resourceful around that too. So that's my spiel for you.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments from alders at this point?
So my question, I guess, and thank you very much, Ava, for your presentation. When looking at the resolutions that we have, what is distinguishing resolution 119 and resolution 120 from the presentation and the amount that you just noted?
I will let someone else answer that. I think that 120 refers to a budget for the plan implementation. Is that right?
That's my understanding. Or other, I guess Elder Lagaki could probably answer that better than I could. Or Director Ellinger says he'll address it.
You should,
One
yes.
twenty is basically the plug figure to get back to the 125 that the IDEA committee had asked for earmark.
The 15,900 is essentially, so that was a number that I provided before I met with the mayor and Alder Lagaki and I think Alder Reeves. And we talked a little bit about concerns around building momentum for implementation. And so I integrated a few more meetings with community leaders into that. And I shifted some money, I shifted the budget to around translation as well. So that was a number I had about 2 weeks ago. The number now is 17,700 instead of 15,900, I think is the difference. If we can finish next June, and I will have it ready to unveil at Juneteenth in 2025.
Okay, President Reeves.
So, yeah, I did have a couple comments, and I don't think this is new to either Alder Lagaki or Abba, because I did share some concerns. In general, I'm not really a fan of surveys because I'm always concerned they're going to end up on a shelf. But, you know, given the benefit of the doubt, but what I'm really struggling with is my hope when this committee was formed that there would be sort of a grassroots coalition that would lead the city in a direction, you know, in a DEI pathway. But there hasn't been a good track record of even being able to get a quorum. So I am concerned about what will happen when Abba leaves. I think her, you know, your work is fabulous, but I'm just concerned about when you leave us, you know, here, because I don't believe that this is going to be a project that the city as a municipality can take on. The last public meeting that was posted was in January of 23. The last minutes were in October of 22. So while we're being asked to approve the roadmap, I don't have the roadmap that got us here. There's been a good amount of money spent, so I am pretty fiscally conservative, but there's $14,000 or $15,000 spent. But from an accountability standpoint, there's not a public forum that can critique it. So I can't point to anybody, any documents that say this is how we got here and this is how your money was. So I want to support, you know, the DEI initiatives, but I'm really struggling with the accountability and transparency because there's no public record. And I would have a really difficult time explaining how we're going to allocate more funding when it's not really clear to me where our path has brought us this far. So that's my struggle.
I don't need to speak to most of that. I am confused about the lack of, we did have posted meetings and agendas up until the end of 2023. I think it was probably September. I mean, we posted meetings, we just didn't get quorum in October, November, and December, but we did submit minutes. So
yeah,
I don't.
So we don't have minutes, and I don't, and you know, but so then it makes me wonder if there was open meeting laws issues. So it's not available to the public on the website. So, you know, and I checked with Candy. I don't believe our clerk. I don't believe there's minutes that are just sitting in a file that haven't been posted. But at this point, they're not available. I couldn't review any public minutes on the website. So
that's just okay. We definitely took minutes, and I was pretty certain I emailed them, okay. But maybe I did. It could be my fault. But we do have minutes for the meetings where we reached quorum. So I can make sure to get them to wherever they need to be.
So I guess my question is, have you had minutes where you met quorum since January of 23? Because that's...
Yes, It was, the last meeting we had quorum was September of 2023. And then since then, yes, we've been struggling. So that's real.
And I know it's not because you haven't tried, so thank you, Abba.
All right, any other questions or comments? Alderperson Legaki?
I shared that around the grassroots, and the reality that was discovered as we tried to do this on a shoestring without a budget before the days of getting to the coordinator, because that was always our goal, was to begin bringing in that grassroots. Lisa, I do think it exists. It's just not formally within, and it doesn't fit. You look at what DEI is, it is very hard to do that within the reality of Robert's Rules of Orders and city government. I just want to say that out loud, but say at the same time, you're still accountable, you still put the meetings out, you still get everything there. But when we first started, not long after the murder of George Floyd, and we held our listening sessions and we tried to get our grassroots going, I think the mayor began seeing the challenge of that and chose to go in the direction of the coordinator a little faster than some of the initial work we were doing. And I think there's been a coalescing and a thought of things offered and hoped for. But Lisa, if you look at what Juneteenth was, if you look at what we are trying to grow in this community right now, I do think that we're at this point of really beginning to look at how do we include, how are we welcoming, how are we hospitable. I think there are efforts and smallness throughout the years, but it's been kind of siloed. This is our attempt to bring it together, Lisa. And so I don't think that there is much of a roadmap for that. It is a little chancy. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of witness and relational, but we do have these pockets, and this is our attempt to say, how do we organize this? How do we come together in a way that brings presence at our city level, including all of us as alders and all of us as department heads? This is our attempt to do that. And so, Lisa, I share that desire with you, but it is rather difficult, and yet that is why we sought out this coordinator.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would echo a lot what you said, Alder Legaki. I know the intent was to do grassroots, and it's very challenging to do that, especially when people, are working and have families and have other commitments. To get a quorum has been a challenge, and to follow government open records laws where you can't use a Google Share, for example. You can't use Google Doc to communicate and do things in between meetings. That's been a real challenge. I think that, in some respects, it'd probably be way more efficient if it was like a nonprofit group that was working with the city to get through this process. I think that, when I was introduced to Abba, she was highly recommended. I'm confident that she's the right person to do the job. Has done amazing work so far. And, I really look forward to get a completed plan, and I'm trying to figure out how we're going to do that without additional funding, but yet maintain that level of accountability that was mentioned earlier. So there is still some funds available to do some work, but not enough to complete it. There's some money available in the ARPA fund to at least get us closer to the end of the year. Maybe, we could reevaluate and see if we're on target and on schedule at that point. We can certainly look at, funding the balance later, or other ways that we could fund it. There's two requests. The second request, I would just say that it's hard for me to embrace money to be set aside for implementation for anything when we don't have a plan. And I'm just going to be frank about that. I'm more than happy to entertain that when the plan is completed, which I would anticipate would be in next year's budget, and maybe look for some grants or creative ways to at least keep the momentum going until we get into that budget cycle. So at this point, I'm just trying to figure out, there's really two ways of completing the plan. One with doing the survey, and I'm not really sure if, and maybe Avi, you can answer this, can we complete the plan without doing the survey, and what will that look like, and will it be effective?
Well, I'm not sure that so I think one of the purposes of, frankly, the main purpose, I will be honest, of community engagement, whether it's a survey or in-person focus groups, is to give people a sense of ownership in the process, that their voices have been heard, that their stories are reflected. So can I write you a plan? Maybe for the remaining funds, but will it have community buy-in? Will it actually reflect your community specifically? I don't think so. I mean, I honestly, I think many municipalities, and I actually said yes to this project, knowing that Stoughton is small and your budget is not huge, right? And I'm trying to be very careful of public dollars in this situation. And yet I think it's true that, municipalities will spend upwards of $100,000 or $150,000 for a plan like this. And so, or will hire a full-time person with benefits to be doing it, right? So I think that, while it feels like a lot in a planning process, it's a delicate balance between authoring a plan and actually building momentum around it, to see it do more than collect dust. So I feel that, and I have struggled with the issues around quorum. I mean, it was interesting, right? Like I could have, when the community or the city approached me, I mean, you can ask Mayor Swadley, I asked for a committee. I wanted a committee. I wanted the relationships. I wanted the connection to people in Stoughton. I don't know that it had to work this way. Meaning we could have structured it a little bit differently, and it's possible I could have done it more quickly in that way. But I also think the relationships that we've built in this process are invaluable to what comes next out of this. And my hope is we will build on that momentum through the completion of the plan and actually leave you with that core group that want to see it done, meaning like the actual implementation. So, and we'll be engaged. The other thing I shared is that the city can't do this alone. This is not, meaning the city needs to invest in the processes and in the elements of it that are the role of government. But to change a culture is not, government can't do that single-handedly top down. So this plan is also about individuals and relationships and families and organizations. And so I say all of that because I agree. I wish the committee had worked as a structure as much as anybody, and I understand the need for accountability. And I also think that, to do that, I think that was the whole reason you looked for a contractor in the first place, is because your grassroots group did not have the capacity to do it. So I don't know.
Thank you for that. So unless there's questions or comments at this point, I think, you have a few options. Somebody could make a motion, or we could wait. We could do it at a future council meeting. We have, out of the ARPA money, we have $44,240 left. We could chew on it for a while and bring it back, or we can go ahead and allocate funds tonight. How about, you have enough money to go, another month or 2 or 3?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I have quite enough. I think we have enough money to administer the survey. I could probably eke it out. I don't really have enough money to do the survey analysis and report.
Okay.
So.
All right.
I am going to take a chance. If I'm recognized, I would
Okay.
like to make a motion,
All right.
like we did with other motions. I would like to make a motion
Okay.
that we seek that more time approach just because of wanting to build up even more community within this work. So I believe that dollar amount was 17,700 on that slide. And so that resolution, that amount, 17,700, not the 15,900, is what I would like to move forward.
All right. Is there a second? Second by Alderperson Abel. And any discussion, anything you want to add, Alder Lagaki?
I hope we keep investing in these more philosophical, not as concrete as water lines in downtown, but we're talking about $17,700 to try to keep building forth and create more of a presence of social justice and DEI. I cannot stress how vital that is.
Thank you. Alderperson Abel.
I just want to add, I mean, I hear a lot of concerns that President Reeves and echo that. We already spent a lot of money on this project, though, and to think that we're just going to walk away now and or do a survey and not get an analysis, or we already did all this money. I just think it's important to see the project through, and I think we're talking about ways to make our community more equitable and accessible in other ways. And I think, you know, this is another way we can make our community more equitable and accessible, and understanding how people who don't look like us are experiencing the city, and the city's changing, and it's important to understand that and how we can make it better.
Thank you. Anybody else have questions or comments on the motion? Alderperson Sherlucky.
So with this 17,000 that's on the table right now, that is for this to be done next year. And that's the survey completed, the analysis to be done, and to have a plan recommended to the city, which would mean probably another year before it gets into the budget. So we're looking at 2026 before we start to see the fruits of this. Well, first off, is that a correct understanding of where this is at right now?
May I comment?
Sure.
Alder Sherlucky, I think that we are trying to organize and get into city systems and understanding. The fruits of it are out there. The Juneteenth that occurred has been kept alive during this transitional process. And so my hope by offering that timing, giving a little more time, is that if we are going to be starting that comprehensive plan as early as 2025 or by 2027, I believe that we will be in a position to be able to help guide the city both with sustainability and more inclusive lenses around diversity, accessibility, and culture. And so I see this happening now, keeping going projects, and to try to figure out where we as a city are truly invested and sponsored in doing this. I once again ask us to look at our website, and you see very little presence. We have numerous levels to address. I believe it is already starting, and I think that this is good grassroots work to get a great baseline for the new comprehensive planning that we have coming. Abba, I didn't want to cut you off, but I just wanted to speak to those things, because I think having lenses of sustainability and DEI in our city planning is essential.
Yeah, and I would just add, you know, part of the challenge is, let's face it, we live in an instant gratification world. This is a marathon. It's unfortunate, but it really is. This isn't something that we're just going to get up and fix the next day. This is going to be a long process, not only for us, but for everybody else that's willing to take it on. So, yeah, I'd like to have it done myself, but On the other hand, I don't want to do it half-baked or worse yet, not at all. So I get it. So I guess ultimately it's going to be up to you guys. Alderperson Payton.
I have two things because I sound very business oriented today, so sorry about that. But with this resolution, we're talking about resolution 119 and not resolution 120. That's what Jean was providing the motion on, correct? That
Correct.
wasn't explicitly, I didn't hear that explicitly stated, so okay, good.
Yep.
Yes, I didn't read 119. 120, Dave, thank you for being accountable and putting all ARPA requests in there, because ours weren't really addressed. And so, no, anything around implementation, we know will not be coming from ARPA funds unless there happens to be interest money that makes sense at that time. But at this point, no, I'm only putting forward 119. Thank you, Daniel. DJ.
Yeah, no problem. The other point, to Jonathan's point, is we do have the ability to plan for the 2025 budget as budget conversations are coming up, that if we're expecting June to have an outlined road plan, a roadmap for where we need to go, we could set aside money in the budget for the next year instead of ARPA funds, knowing that we've done it in the past for this initiative to be where we're at now, instead of waiting to 2026.
Correct.
So that we don't have to waste time. And I think that's a fair compromise with where we're at, is get to that point, get the foundation set, and then use what Ava's already provided as potential forecasting for the plan to set the budget in our budget conversations in, oh gosh, only a couple of months. But yeah, I think that's where I'm at.
Any other questions or comments, Alders? All right, we have the motion on the table, which is R119. And
Mayor, Director Dave would like to.
Go ahead, Dave.
The language in 119 has to be changed to have 4240 from ARPA and the remaining funds from investment earnings.
Okay. Yeah, how you understood it, Jean?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody understands?
Mayor
Okay.
Swadley?
Yes.
I don't know if can I say something?
Sure.
In response to the question about timing, I actually think the survey, which will be done this fall, will yield some low-hanging fruit that might help you in budgeting. So, there might be some early recommendations that I can share from the survey results before June of next year. So if you can give me a target, I can plan for that.
All right. Sounds good. Otherwise, we'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 And any opposed?
No.
All right, the motion carries. So we still have some other items on there. We have the second item for DEI, the 120, and then we have some more sustainability items. What would you guys like to do?
I would like 120 table.
Okay, so we just won't take action on that one. And then President Reeves?
Well, I wanted to go back to the motion, the resolution, I lost, for resolution 118, 2024, since I brought it up already, so I think I'll have to change it to, I'd like to amend it to read $20,000, but it would need to be out of investment earnings, correct? So I would make a motion to allocate $20,000 to Fort Little Green.
An additional, or instead of the
17.5, gonna bump it up to 20, given that the project is gonna be more expensive. Can I amend that, or
I thought we approved, or
No, that one was withdrawn out of the original motion, so
Because
we
I had
only
to
voted
amend
on
it.
2 items.
okay. No, I'm totally confused. Right,
innovation. Yeah,
okay,
but
okay.
Alder Legaki asked us to wait for further.
That's right. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for that. Okay, so your motion is,
For Resolution 118, 2024, to allocate $20,000 to the Fort Little Green project, and that would be out of the ARP investment.
okay,
I so move.
your second? Second by Sherlucky and Alderperson, or President Reeves.
So again, I think, you know, I like a lot about this, in particular, letting kids get into, you know, who may be wheelchair bound, being able to experience the same things as those who can, you know, the walk on their own, so they can get out into the woods, because right now they are not able to get to this particular section of the camp. I was able to go out and visit, so it seems to me like they have a little food forest going on out there, so I like that. I think they want to expand the Mason Bee areas. They have the gardens that they talked about. They have the animal programs, and if you had a chance to read through their materials, they have they have some interesting speakers that come in, STEM. So I think it's really a diverse camp for a diverse group of kids, and so I was really, it's unfortunate we can't cover the whole thing, but hopefully if we can at least, you know, manage 20,000, that will be a step in the right direction and do fundraising for the other.
Any questions or comments from Alders? So I just want to make sure that you understand that we can allocate it, but it has to be spent, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, by the end of 2026. So I want to make sure that that's your intention.
That only applies to ARPA funds.
Actually, you're right, because this is the interest.
Right.
So never mind that. But we want you to get it done sooner than later. Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks for that. That's why I said correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, yeah. Any questions or comments?
Just a
Yes.
point of clarification from Dave. I'm, unless my math is wrong, before this, we're sitting at about 66,500, and it's all interest remaining, correct?
Yes, all the ARPA funds have been appropriated now. We just looked it up. We've got an additional roughly 4,500 for June interest.
Around 70?
Yep.
Any other
That's-
questions?
That's before this, correct?
Yeah, that's my math.
Yeah. Yep. Any other questions or comments on this one? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. All right, put the kids to bed.
Actually, I'd like to move forward the sustainability request.
Okay, did you have a particular one in mind?
They gave us some wiggle room, and so I would like to have the remaining interest go to our sustainability project. I think Greenspire at 48,000 and stormwater and sinking utilities, that clicks all kinds of boxes around low income, the elderly, helping build up our city joint projects with that developer. I would like to see the 48,000, I think is what Adrian put forward. And then with what remains, I would like to see go toward the other remaining composting or food forest project.
Right.
I defer to the group, but let's finish this, you guys, and come on, let's give this sustainability.
Okay, so I got to get clarification from the Director Ellinger. So what do we have left out of the interest?
Well, right now we've got 57,471 left. However, I need to bring up the Greenspire properties. The city does not own them, and the ownership group as of June 28th is a different owner group. I would suggest before you put any funds to it, you talk to the new owner group and see what they want to do.
I believe Adrian has done that already, and if she has not, if this is a date or an unexpected, we had addressed this in committee, and we saw this within the scope of the project manager and easily written into the job description. Adrian, are you still there, and can you speak to that?
And she is, but I'll put out one comment. The project manager that you spoke with is one of the minority owners. He is not the majority owner. Paul. Oh, you're talking about Menachem?
No, I didn't speak to Menachem. Yes, I've been working with Paul, but the hired staff member, which I don't know if he transitioned in the sale, is who I spoke to about, I guess, the management. I was unaware that it changed hands. That's news to me. I know that the original idea was that if it changed hands, it would be written into the property management contract. So what is happening with the rest of the project, I would ask, because there are still, there's still an electrification project. There's still funding coming from various sources for the solar canopy project and other improvements. So, this is a part of that. So do those go away too because we change hands? Yeah.
I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer to that question, but I feel I'd be remiss if I didn't say that
Yeah.
you've got a new owner
I mean,
to deal with.
previously, on paper, it was owned by the Housing Authority, which is a separate entity from the city.
Mm-hmm.
There's an investment group
Right
that
hand.
purchased the property for tax credits, and then they sell the tax credits, do the work. So we really need to have, I believe, something from somebody there that says, yes, indeed, we are going to maintain this if this is done, and whether or not they're willing to even do it on their property. It's not our property to tell them what they should and shouldn't do. Which
So
I know
does
you
the
understand.
request need to come from Greenspire directly? Does the request need to come from a new property management company? Because it was my understanding that the request is for a grant or loan to Greenspire LLC to execute the permaculture landscaping. So am I misunderstanding, or have we not been clear about that, or did something change?
I think it would probably be best to come from them than the committee because it's their property.
Okay.
They could certainly have you deliver the message, and maybe you have a written thing, or maybe they Zoom into a meeting. So, I mean, the good news is we're at the point now where we're really talking about the interest money. So we don't necessarily have to make that decision even by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So I would rather vet it out than allocate the money and then turn around and say, oh, it's not going to work, and now we have to reallocate it to something else. But we could do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, the other thing is in spite of this, I think it's going to be really helpful when you have your plan done so we understand big picture wise what some of the other initiatives are going to be, for the same reason we talked with ABBA about, is trying to understand through the budget process how we're going to implement the other initiatives.
Yeah,
and I think what happened is we got distracted by this money that was in front of us, right? And we're all like, oh, we really want to do some project, but we have to really complete the plan because we need to know holistically what else there might be to make sure we're able to fund other things that might bubble up to the top. And I think you understand.
I don't know if I'm talking out of bounds, but I fundamentally disagree with that. I think that to bypass opportunities to implement sustainability solutions, waiting on a plan that will have other solutions that will need to be worked out through the city budgeting process, I think that's, I don't agree that that would be the right approach.
And we can talk about that offline. I mean, we're not going to settle that here, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that the council has to understand what it is that they're approving and whether or not it's even feasible at this point, at least on this particular request.
Okay. I just want to ask one more question. We've asked a lot of questions about what the process should look like, and I feel like we should have known from the beginning that the process requires funds were earmarked. Sustainability Committee was asked to make recommendations. I think it would have been nice to know that the request needed to come from the entity that we were recommending for funding. That could have been easily remedied. We could have done that months ago. So I just want to throw that out there, that we didn't have to be in this position today.
Yep.
Thank
Director
you.
Ellinger.
Just for your information, when you were talking to the Housing Authority, I'm one of the committee members. I'm the treasurer for the Housing Authority. We've got another council member on the Housing Authority. So we were in favor of the concept of it. I'm just doing my due diligence saying, you got another party you got to deal with now.
President Reese.
So I am also in favor of earmarking funds for sustainability, but it sounds like we may have some, and whether it's this project or, another project, I support the sustainability initiatives, but it sounds like there's some details yet that need to be worked out. And whether or not it's for the permaculture or something else, but I really would like the directors to have a whack at it. I don't know if you have a timeline, and I think you may have shared with me, but I don't recall if you kind of had a goal for when the plan will be finished, but I do think that will help provide a bit of a map, and then it would also give the directors an opportunity to maybe say, oh, that's a fabulous idea. We hadn't thought of that, and can we use some of those funds? But also, if this is a project through the Housing Authority that perhaps makes sense, but at this point, it sounds like we don't have all the information. So I would like to, and I don't know if we need it as a motion, but if so, I think Alder Legacki said, maybe started the conversation, but to set aside the remaining funds rather than earmark it for something else, and just maybe pause for now, and keep in mind that I'd like to reserve these funds for sustainability, but I'm not sure that we're quite there yet. And it's investment income, right? So we don't have to do anything right now. That was kind of rambling, but I'm sort of saying I'd like to reserve the funds, but I don't know that we need to make a decision right now.
Okay. I see two hands. I see Alderperson Payton and then Alderperson.
Yeah, I think we need to be good stewards of this money, but what I will say is that for my tenure so far, we've talked about monies earmarked for sustainability, and now we have some recommendations in front of us. I'd like to take some of them and do them because they're here. So, to me, I think the composting program, one being a residential program, which I think is a great to start piloting and see how that works. I'm from California, and my family in California, they now have separated trash, that food waste is no longer to be collected in the typical garbage. It's collected separately. So this is a similar program, and I think it would be interesting to pilot and try that out. So I'm okay with the event composting program and for the residential composting as a compromise for some of the things that, some things should come from tonight. I believe that sustainability things should be moved forward just as DEI things have moved forward, just as other initiatives have moved forward tonight. I think it makes sense to push something forward. Does that leave us a ton of money left? No, but that was the point for this evening's ARPA slew of resolutions. So I would move, since we're not on a particular item, I would move to approve Resolution 113 and Resolution 112 for the two different composting program initiatives, and with the appropriate adjustment of funding, with the language necessary to acknowledge that it's coming from the investing residuals.
Second.
Before I go any further, I just want to double check. Dean, did you have a motion on the table?
I did not. I
Okay.
had never officially, I
Okay.
think I was trying to test the water as
Okay.
well as put out a particular directive because I wasn't sure where it was going to land
Okay.
on all of that. So
Is
I
it-
had not put forward a motion and I just seconded 112 and 113, was it?
Yeah, you're going to second that?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure before I start accepting motions. Director Ellinger?
I need some clarification. Was the motion for the original 18 and 20 or the revised 12 and 10?
I thought I would be approving what was in the packet as written.
Mine as well. Where was the revision? Was it acknowledged in the presentation? Because I missed that part. I apologize.
Yeah, it was. We all have paper copies. I had a copy on the screen at one point.
Okay.
But
therein lies the problem.
it does.
I think we passed 18. 118, Dave, that you asked about.
Yeah. So you can do whichever one you feel is appropriate, either the original or the revised.
If it's recommended to be, oh, I see that on 112, it says in the box at the top 18,000, but then in the actual ARPA sanitation fund it says 12 below it in the body of it. So what am I missing?
It went from 18 was the original, and Adrian, you can help clarify this. It went from 18 to 12 because it was going to be a 2-year, right?
Yeah, 18 is a 2-year program and 12 would be a 1-year program.
And then for the other one, 20 was a 2-year program.
And 10 would be a 1-year program.
10 would be a 1-year.
That's right.
Thank you.
So may I ask then, while you're there,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I should have asked earlier when you were presenting it, but what is the benefit to doing a 2-year program versus a 1-year program in terms of what data you can collect about user, like how many users are actually using everything within the study for it, or what's the pro con of going to 2 instead of 1?
Sure. Well, I mean, the only reason we amended and reduced was to try to be able to have the money be spread further. The 2-year residential program would mean that the first year of the program, 100 residents would be subsidized at half the cost of the subscription service. And in the second year, the subsidy would go down, so they'd be paying 75% of the full subscription service. The idea being that they don't, the residents who do sign up don't get sticker shock when the subsidy goes away and cancel their subscriptions.
I think that's responsible. So I would say that I'd agree with the 18,000 from my motion for
Okay.
112.
And is
for the
that where
2
you're
years.
at, Alder Legaki?
Yes.
Okay, and the same thing for the second one? Is that the same benefit? Or is that
No,
different?
it's not actually. And I think that's an overestimate. I think that 10K would be plenty to kick off an event food composting program to start with Sutton Demai, gazebo music, and next year's Taste of Stoughton. I think that would get us through at least a year, and maybe even more.
Okay. So your motion then, I understand, would be 18 for resolution 112, which is the 2-year compost, and it would be 10 for resolution 113 for the 2-year event compost.
I would agree with that, yes.
Okay, and Alder Legaki, you would as well?
Second.
Okay.
To all of that.
Okay, and then I had Alderperson Abel had her hand up. Are you still with it? Or is... We can come back if you're...
I mean, I was gonna basically say what Alderperson Payton said about getting some of this. moving. I will say I have signed up for Greenbox during this meeting because they have started in Stoughton. So just so you know.
Nice.
And
Awesome.
yeah. And then I guess the thing that biggest thing that piqued my interest about the residential food composting program was scaling it to school cafeterias. In terms of if there's any way we can come back to that piece and seeing what that would be, because I think that honestly might be then in more sustainable ways than subsidizing for 100 folks. Because I would just also, if we're gonna do 100 folks, I would love it to be for low income or their income requirements. It's just a thought, but I'm all for composting. So that's it for me.
All right, President Reeves.
Just a question on I think it may have been in the packet, but I don't remember if there's any staff time involved in administering the program for, because I don't want to volunteer staff if they are responsible for the signing people up or whatever. So,
if it's okay, I'm going to speak a little bit about this because the Innovation Center actually was the one that piloted the Taste of Stoughton composting. And so I think one of the proposals would be, I think it's in there that the Innovation Center would help kind of administer or work with, so with the Taste of Stoughton pilot, we kind of Innovation Center brought together a group of Sustainable Stoughton representatives, Taste of Stoughton representatives, Greenbach, and Sustainability Committee representatives to kind of create a just kind of an informal group to move the pilot composting forward. We did recently just receive a $2,500 Dane County Organics Management Grant for the pilot, the Taste of Stoughton pilot event. And then we'll have some money left over, about $1,000, maybe $1,500 left from that to use for additional event composting or sort of whatever composting we would like. So there's that as well. But I think, I guess a question would be for each of those resolutions or buckets, is it possible to sort of I guess back to how broad can they be? Because if we have, in the resolution, it was listing the specific events like Set to Mai and gazebo music, if we have those listed in the resolution, are we limiting ourselves to those events, or can it be flexible? And then same question with the residential program, if it's listed as residential, can it be adjusted to school, school district if that's ends up being preferred? Those would be my questions.
We'll let Director Ellinger answer that.
I would just add the language such as, and then it's not specific. But I'm looking for some clarification, and then I have to modify it. If I'm understanding correctly, we are doing Resolution 112 at $18,000 for the 2-year residential composting, 113 for the 2-year event composting at $10,000. Is that understanding correct?
Yes.
Okay, then secondly, the language in the resolutions have to be changed, not using ARPA funds, but using a combination of fund balance and interest proceeds, because some of the interest was from last year and some is from this year.
So I still had my question though about the residential. So let's say Sally wants to sign up for it, and I apologize if it's in the packet, but are we going to have to be calling anybody at Public Works, or that's
No,
I just want to make sure that there's no
it's
work
totally
involved.
it's totally handled by Greenbach.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
In Sustainability Committee, we did begin to talk about getting into the school cafeteria. It's I think going to be a little messy, to get into that one.
No pun intended.
No,
Yeah.
no, full pun intended,
Oh,
for
full
sure.
pun. Okay. There you go,
Um,
Brett.
Yeah, just, we talked about like staffing and things like that we may get pushback from that, but it's something that we can certainly present anyway.
I would approve the language Dave mentioned, to make sure that that's clear on where the funds are coming from. I appreciate that clarification. Secondly, when it comes to the school, I think that's one to look into, but not one to approve tonight or to provide flexibility in the resolution for. I think we can review it, and I think that can be a general request in the future. So I would, other than changing where the money is coming from, according to Dave's language suggestion, then those two offer I move as written.
Second to the language recommendation.
So we already had motions on the table, so we're breaking all of Robert's rules. Rick helped me sort this out, and between Dave and Candy, hopefully you captured all the language. So what would you like us to do?
I mean, I think the intent is clear.
Okay.
Maybe it is. Yeah, those kind of amendments are complicated.
I mean, it's kind of wordsmithing. I don't know if it changes.
It's more of
the
a
intent.
clarification of the resolution. I mean,
I'm fine with it
Yeah.
as everyone else is, but I figured I better at least run it past you.
I don't have an issue with it as long
Okay.
as everybody understands what they're actually voting for.
All right.
Especially Dave.
All right. So between Dave and
And
Candy,
finance.
you're going to get the language, and then any questions or comments on any of that? I mean, everybody understand what we're doing here?
There is
Alderperson-
compost.
All right. Alderperson Sherlucky.
I just had one question, and for the sustainability initiatives, my understanding from our last meeting was that these were presented to us in order of reference. So given that we are moving forward with the food composting programs, I just want to make sure that we could be undercutting into the Greenspire program and initiative based on the funds available, if that one was preferred to be first. If they're not in preferential order, then it's not a concern. But I'd like to respect that if possible.
Okay.
They were not presented in any sort of order other than chronological as one received.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other clarifications needed? Go ahead.
Can I just add to that? Their biggest priority was helping fund the fire department solar panels, and we did pass that. Did get their first priority done.
All right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries. So what's our new tally? Is it about 37 something? Is that right? What do you have for a tally, Dave? Is it 37?
It's around 29.5
29.
if you're looking for available.
Oh,
At this
yeah.
point, it would be
Yeah,
all fund
28.
balance.
28. Okay, so what would you guys like to do? You want to continue, or you want to do another item?
I would propose that we just hold on the 29,000 because we don't have a time limit timed to it. That way, then we can clear up the Greenspire project and eventually get either move forward or we leave that one behind. And then we could also take some of these back into the committee itself and maybe reprioritize based on the last amount. And then we would still continue to gain some interest on this. Is that true?
Remind me.
Yeah, we would.
We would still gain some interest on there, so that may gain us a few extra dollars. So I would just say pause for now.
everyone okay with that?
I'm in agreement.
Okay. All right, then I guess that's what we'll do. We'll carry over the rest for another day. We'll tally up where we're at, and we'll go from there. So we do have the one item number 22 is left. Yeah.
Oh, no.
So item 22 is a
Is
discussion.
President Reeves okay? I just saw her head go.
She's in concussion protocol.
Oh, no.
Discussion and possible action regarding the Stoughton Family Dental Tax Incremental Financing Request. And Attorney Matthew, is that something that we can start and open or just go right into close?
For this one, I was thinking just go right into closed if the
right.
council is inclined to continue.
Who wants to read the language? To go into closed. You have it? Awesome.
Yeah. Right. So the Common Council may convene in closed session per state statute 19.85, parent 1, parent E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business. Whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, the Common Council may reconvene in an open session to discuss and take action on the subject matter discussed in the closed session, and so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Schumacher. And we have to do a roll call. Second by Alderperson Schumacher. We have to do a roll call vote when you're ready, Candy.
Okay, Reeves,
Aye.
Sherlucky,
Aye.
Abel,
Aye.
Lagaki,
Aye.
Butler,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Jensen, think he's there, right?
Yeah, you said aye.
Okay, sorry, I could not hear. Thank you. Schumacher,
Aye.
Caravello.
Aye.
Okay, we have 9 alders in favor.
All right, we'll take a few minutes and then we'll start the closed session.